Hey guys, it's Chelsea again. Let's go over Module 7. In this first video, we're going to go over the ideal gas equation and STP. Let's go over the ideal gas equation. So, our ideal gas equation, we have PV equals nRT, right? So, let's break it down. So, P is going to be our pressure, and this is measured in atmospheres. V is going to be our volume, which is measured in liters. N is going to be our number of moles, which is measured in moles. And then T is our temperature, which is measured in Kelvin. So the reason why I skipped R is so I can make sure you guys know how to get your units for R. So I guess looking back at algebra, we know that we can isolate this equation to find R by itself, right? So we can say R is equal to PV over NT, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in our values, or our units, sorry. So I'm going to say, okay, well, pressure is in atmospheres, volume is in liters, N is in moles, and T is Kelvin, right? So this is how I find my units for R. Just in case you forget, you can do this as well on your exam. So just remember that R is going to be our only constant. So this is your gas constant, which the value is 0.0821 liter atmospheres per mole Kelvin. So just keep that in mind. I know some people, they get confused as to what R is, but just keep that in mind. Okay, so another thing that I want to point out, though, is the units that you're going to be given. So remember, pressure, we want it in atmospheres. But keep in mind, they could give it to us in torr, or they could give it to us in millimeters of mercury, or kilopascals, or in PSI, right? PSI, sorry. So just keep in mind that if they were to give you guys the pressure in torr, millimeters of mercury, any of those, then we want to make sure that we're converting to atmospheres. So just keep in mind that we need to do that as well. So let's say they said 3.9 torr, right? We can use this conversion right here. So we can say, okay, well, that would be 760 torr. And then on the top, you would have 1 atmosphere, so you can cancel out your torr. So just keep that in mind. You're probably going to have to convert for pressure. Moles, what can they do for moles? Well, for moles, they can give you grams, which means that you're going to have to convert from grams to moles. What can they do for liters? Well, of course, they always give us milliliters just to make us convert every time. And then for Kelvin, just remember you probably have to convert from degrees Celsius to Kelvin. So just keep in mind that any of the things that are in blue, those are things that you're going to have to convert if they give you something else. And then just make sure that you're working with the units of R. You're working with liter, atmosphere, moles, and Kelvin. So make sure that these are your 4 units that you're working with all of your other variables. Okay, so let's look at STP. So at STP, we're talking about standard temperature pressure, right? So these are going to be in ideal situations. So we're going to have a value for each one of them. So P, or pressure, is going to equal 1 atmosphere at STP. Our number of moles, we're going to have 1 mole. For our constant, that's a constant, so it's always the same. So 0.0821 liter atmospheres per mole Kelvin. And then our temperature, this is going to be 273 Kelvin at STP. And I left out V because sometimes people also forget the value of V, and I want to make sure you guys know how to get that. So let's say we want to find volume by itself, right? So we're going to say volume is equal to nRT over P. So I can just plug in my values of STP and I can get my value for V. So I'm going to say, okay, I have 1 mole, see right here, 1 mole at STP. My constant is always the same, 0.0821. My temperature is going to be the 273, so let me write that in, 273, divided by my pressure, which is at 1 atmosphere. So if I were to do all this math, I can see that volume is equal to 22.4 liters. So keep in mind, even if you don't remember your values for STP, you can also just plug in the ones that you do know, and you can find any other value. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, so that's going to be it for this video, and then see me again on the other video for all the other laws.